today's episode of the podcast, I continue the special Lost episode series with a tasting with Franck Pascal. He's a highly regarded producer of grower champagne, integrating principles of natural, organic and biodynamic, as well as naturopathic, in his winemaking. In this episode, he talks about the story of the domain, before getting into a tasting of 6 of their different cuvées. As I mentioned, this recording was made at the invitation of Frederic Grappe of Dynamic Vines, who was also at the tasting and adds in comments and further explanations. I've edited this episode very lightly, leaving in the tasting pauses if you're happy to be lucky enough to have the wine in your glass. And I think that the asides and questions that come on the day really allow Franck to go in depth, sharing the philosophy of his winemaking. Enjoy.
I just want to tell you a few words about Champagne Franck Pascal, about our domain and my vision. So when I started nearly 25 years ago, I really wanted to create high quality wines because I know I'm a member of a family who did this for centuries, and to me it's necessary to honor the generations before, my forefathers, creating wines, because I made that job at their moment, at their time, and now it's my turn to do the job and honor the terroir of Champagne. So it's really, I'm touched to know that we are only a few people on earth able to be wine grower in Champagne, so it's really, I'm really a lucky guy. We are in Man Valley. Man Valley is a small part in Champagne. We are where we have clay terroirs. Champagne is mostly known for limestone, but there's no limestone where we are. It's clay with 3 hard kind of rocks. The rocks are flint, hard chalk. It's a chalk with silicium inside, and pierre meulière. It's a French kind of stone used to build houses and also to sharpen the knives, so really hard. And as a wine lover, it's important for me to get wine with fruitiness but also minerality. And minerality is really the signature of the place where the vineyard grows. And it's also a mix for food pairing, because minerality pairs with texture of meat, fish and so on. So there are 2 reasons to get minerality. And where we are in Man Valley, it's really difficult to get minerality, because as soon as we use fertilizers stay in the clay and the roots go in the clay to feed the plant, and it makes huge quantity of grapes, but there's no connection with minerality. So our 10 first years as wine grower was to find the way to get minerality in our champagne. So we stopped fertilizers in many plots between 8 to 10 years long. Thus we let the natural grass growing, and this unstored all of the fertilizers were in the clay, and obliged the roots to go deeper inside the soil and connect to rocks and get minerality in the grape. And we had a new challenge, because even if minerality was inside the grape, it was hard to get it till the final bottle, because we had to improve our way of vinificating. So we understood that there is a vintage effect on the grape, and there is also a vintage effect on the natural yeast living on the grapes. And given the yeast and the grape live the same event, we believe that the natural yeasts are the most able to transform the juice into something pure, precise and mineral. So we think that when we drink something or eat something, when the natural proportions of elements of what we eat or drink are respected, there is an intuitive feeling, a wellness feeling when we eat or drink. So we don't want to change the rates nature wanted inside the grape. That's the reason why there's no thinning, no cold stabilization, because cold stabilization destroys the acid structure of the wine, and there is also no Filtration, because filtration destroys the colloidal part of the wine, and colloidal is important for texture effect.
And the structure as well?
Structure as well, also, yeah. So you start the tasting with Fluence. Fluence is mostly Pinot Meunier, 60%, 34 Pinot Noir and 6 Chardonnay. The wines are from 12 and 13 together. And there's no dosage.
Why did you call it Fluence?
Fluence is because it's a mix of English fluent, something evident, something easy to understand, and the French verb fluer. Fluer means changing really slowly. Things are changing really slowly, but with on a long time we can see the difference. And that's what we want to show with this cuvée. There is something changing in winemaking. It's about considering better our environment, respecting the soil, being more natural, more organic. And this cuvée contains some new plots converted into biodynamic, and biodynamic plots for a long time. So this is a témoignage, a kind of témoignage of a change in the world and in Champagne also. And it's the first step to me for people who are accustomed to standardized champagne and don't know if it's the right word, but something really consensual we are accustomed to, and discover something more natural. To me, it's the first step. And our first cuvée in our range, and it's a good way to become confident with a natural way of working and discovering other cuvées of our range.
So, would you mind just saying something about the rating? I noticed you've got a rating system here.
Yes, on this label, we wanted to communicate on what is important for us. There is some points about gastronomic pleasure. It's really the ability of a wine for food pairing. Bien-être ressenti is really the wellness we feel on drinking champagne, because we really want our champagne easy to drink, easy to share. So it's important to get digestibility, buvability, I don't know if it's English, drinkability, and really something pleasant, no headache, no acid sensation in the body, really something good for the body. And bienfait écologique is about the good impact on our environment. We really want, when I started 24 years ago, I really wanted to create great champagne, and I was sensible to environment, nature, health, and so on. So I really wanted to create something in harmony with our environment. So ecologic benefit was really one part of my wish. So the mark is about organic or conversion or biodynamic, with or without sulfate.
Is it just your winery that has this, or this is something more wide?
We made it till 2014 on some on our cuvée, and now we are thinking if we have to make it wider or change the place, maybe at the back of a bottle.
Okay, but I think it's unique.
It's unique, really unique.
It's interesting way of describing champagne, and hopefully through the tasting, I've known Frank's champagne for a while, but you really get the wine, because they're wines before they're champagne, really agree with the body, whether it's on the palate or also the body really reacts positively about the wines.
Yes, they are usually described as wellness champagne. That's right. Second,
it's a good marketing.
No, it's like this. Reliance. Reliance is the second champagne you try now. This champagne is 2 years old, 2 years more. It's from 10 and 11 together. There's a bit more Pinot Meunier, 80% Pinot Meunier, 16 Pinot Noir, and 4% Chardonnay. And here, this cuvée is made in another spirit with another aim. Reliance is about creating link between people. It's really the conviviality champagne we want, and to me, it's important to have a conviviality champagne because. All the more in a restaurant, because in a restaurant, when there is a table of 8, 10, 12 persons, some people like wines, some people don't know about, and it's important to start the meal, the lunch, with a good energy around the table between people. And the amateur will look for the characteristic you will find here: structure, elegance, finesse, minerality, and so on. But people who don't know about wine will only want to drink something easy to drink, having a good moment, no acidity sensation, no headache, really drinkable. So this champagne has everything to run over to kind of people. There's no dosage.
And how long did they spend with the lees?
It stayed.
5 years. 5 years.
It stayed
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years on years, and dégorgement was 2 years ago.
You'll find that Frank's champagnes are always spending a long time on a lease. This is also one way of working. Naturally, you also need time to be on your side, and therefore long aging is required.
My preferred style is then let it calm down and not so aggressive. It's lovely.
It's important to me, even with no dosage, to have this sensation of pleasure. It's new. It's new in Champagne evolution, Champagne region evolution, having a Brut nature, no dosage champagne. But at ours, we began in 1998, and thanks to this, we could see what is important to do in the vineyard and in the cellar to get a well-balanced champagne without any dosage. We had time enough to understand that there is a sensation to cap inside the grape instead of a rate of acidity and sugar, and also a long vinification on yeast to get a texture effect. And
there's no residual sugar?
No, not at all.
We often hear wines without any dosage are very sharp and acidity. I think this shows that if you have the right quality wine to start with, you can make a wine and you allow time to do its part. You can have a Brut nature that has not only perfect balance but also generosity.
It's very elegant, very well. I love what it's about. And it's I think you're right when you say that it would please everyone.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a champagne which is like very easy to understand and easy to approach. Even for someone who doesn't really know anything about champagne, it's a very, very, very pleasant champagne. Very pleasant.
Yeah.
No change at all. Very, very well balanced.
Thank you. So next one is our third non-vintage champagne. It's a rosé called Tolérance. Tolérance because it's really the spirit in which we create this blend. It's a blend of red and white, and my vision of Tolérance is really accepting the difference of the others and let the others express these differences. And here, I want the red and the white to find their right place to let the other express itself and create a real synergy together. The wines are from 2007 and 2008, 74% Pinot Meunier, and at that moment there was a small dosage of 4 grams. So it's nearly 10 years old. 74% Pinot Meunier, 16 Pinot Noir, and 10 Chardonnay. From 7 and 8.
I think by now we've understood that champagne needs to be a wine before it's a champagne. I think it's pretty clear here, but it's. I think Tolérance is outstanding for the fact that it's a 10-year-old wine that has. So we really have the wisdom of wine that has gone through 10 years of aging, but also the freshness is there. It's still plenty of youth energy. It's not an old wine. It's just a wine that is still growing, and certainly has gained wisdom along the way.
Maybe a moment to say as well. I mean, what is the sort of drinking window? I guess for how long does this go on?
I don't know combien de temps ces vins vont grandir.
I have no opinion. I don't know. Just have to wait.
It's very difficult to tell because we don't necessarily have the proof of this. Now, what I can say is I've been tasting this wine for now a good part of 3 years, and it does not age the way other wines do age. So, if a wild guess would be 10 years from now, minimum. Considering, of course, that this bottle was open at 9:30 this morning. I've been traveling on those pavements since then.
We have a secret, and this secret can be a transition with the next champagne. We connected in 2005 that a wine grower doesn't do the wine himself, except when it's an industrial method. But when we really want to get lively wine, we must admit that life creates the wine herself. So everything living in the wine creates the wine for years. So it starts with natural yeast. Natural yeast ferment the juices at the beginning to create alcohol. Bacteria are able to change the acidity, malic acid, into lactic acid. And like in a cheese, enzymes will change many structures, many molecules inside, like an affinage of the wine for decades. And we don't want to interfere with life. That's why we vinificate without any additive. Because when we use sulfite, for example, sulfur inside when pressing during vinification, the sulfate inhibits one part of the enzymes, one part of the potential of the yeast. And we want the yeast able to do their job the best they can, because I don't know myself how to ferment a wine. Only the yeast knows this. So my job is really to accompany life inside the wine to do the best job they can. And thanks to this free life, things appear inside the wine different than wines with additives inside. I think it's one part of the secret why our champagne are aging and changing so easily with time.
Is that the definition of vigneron? That's kind of what I understand. You see yourself as somebody that's, I guess, helping and aiding the process, but ultimately not the one responsible. You're like a guide.
We don't want to interfere on forcing life to do something it wouldn't. We really want to accompany the potential of life. Yeah, it begins in the soil, because we want lively soil, lively soil, and able to express the terroir and make minerality inside the plant, and also healthy plants. They are living its life being, so we have to accompany this process too. And same for vinification. And with this kind of wine, I think it's wines helping the body to feel better, to be better, because there's no additive, no chemics inside, no pesticide. It helps to me. So Sérénité is really an approach with this philosophy, with this vision. And we went one step further. because in 2005 something else appeared. My wife had Hodge disease and she didn't want chemotherapy. She had the belief chemotherapy would kill her, and she met a therapist in Paris, and this therapist helped her in 5 weeks long. Most of the parameters of a blood analysis become clean, all the lights in green. So it was really surprising to me because I'm supposed to be an engineer, not a wine grower, and this was really strange for my brain to understand. So I wanted to understand, and so I went to see this therapist, learn what she learned, and we integrated a new vision of life in our way of working, including a bit of shaman, Chinese medicine, yogi medicine, energetic method, aromatherapy, and so on. So we have a special relationship with life in our vineyard and in our cellar. And Sérénité was the first try we made. Thanks to this path, we connected to the original definition of what is élevage. Élevage meant centuries ago elevating the vibration of the wine to help the wine to be less matter but more aérien, and getting more finesse, elegance, preciseness. And I was really surprised that with a high vibration I could let a glass of wine for 1 week long, and after 1 week the color, aromas, flavors were still the same. To me, it wasn't possible without any sulfate to conserve a wine, to protect from oxidization, and I was really surprised that we could do this. So I thought it was because it was in vintage 2008, and 2008 was a great vintage, so I thought we were lucky this year, and I wasn't sure we would be able to do it again. And 2009, a really warm year, we did it again. In 2010, a really rainy year, we did it again. So first bottling was in 2010. This is this bottle. It was this gorge nearly 4 years ago. And this bottle doesn't have any additive, no sulfate. It's really natural in the right way to me. No deviation, really precise, pure, vibrant, and mineral.
Is the cuvée quite different from the others? I'm getting quite different notes from this one that I didn't get from either of these two.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And the sensation to me is different. It really creates something different, really intense sensation.
Is there more Chardonnay in this cuvée than the others?
Yes. Mm-mm.
What's the
about 40%, I think.
Yeah, it shows the Chardonnay is more.
What was the reason for that? The higher percentage of Chardonnay?
It's because I wanted to create this, but it was at the last moment. The day of the bottling, I stopped everything. And I thought, just one moment, I have to create a small blend to bottle. Stopped everything, and I created the blend really quickly. Tasted well. Okay, let's try. Put it in bottle really quick. It wasn't thought a lot. Yeah, it wasn't. Usually, I take time to create my blend, to change proportion and so on, to try which wines are able to mix together and create a good energy together and so on. There, it was so fast. So I made with wines without any sulfate I had left. So there was Pinot Meunier without any sulfate, 2 barrels, and only 300 liters of Chardonnay in a small vat. And put all I tried them separately at the beginning. Everything was okay. So I tried the blend. It was okay. So I blend them together very quickly. A few yeast, a few sugar inside the touillet, and blending them together and in the bottle. really, really fast.
At what moment do you decide to blend? At what moment you create it?
Sorry?
When do you pick the blends?
Just before this, for Sérénité in 2010, just before the at bottling. They
Yeah.
stopped the bottling.
But for the vintages? Or do you...
And probably for the vintages to come.
Yes, 2011. I took my time to test the ability to stay for a long time without any sulfate. I taste different texture, different cepage, vinification in wood or in enamel vats and so on, and create a real blend. I really look for a sensation. What I like in this cuvée when I create it, I like the sensation of being aligned and with troisième œil, a third eye open with light. It's really inspiring champagne to me. There's something inspiring in this cuvée, and it's also the definition of comment on dit ça en anglais, l'ivresse? In French there is one word called ivresse, and it's this connection to inspiration thanks to alcohol. It's the real definition at the beginning. The opposite is ébriété in French, meaning drinking too much alcohol and I fall and I don't know who I am, and so it's completely the opposite.
That's why we don't have a word in English. It's usually just drink tea.
It's meditating rather than.
Yeah.
But it's true. I didn't know until Sérénité is 2010 is the first champagne in bottle that I tried without any additives whatsoever, and I didn't know existed before that.
Much less.
They've got it on intoxication.
Much less poetic, as always. First, without
For me,
sulfates.
it's the first champagne I didn't know it existed or it was even possible until I tried Sérénité 2010 in 2015. 2014, 2015.
And even now, like across the board, is champagne still on the whole, kind of big view? Is it still much less sort of natural champagne in the market than red or white, or is it?
Oh yes.
Yeah?
Yes. And certainly without any sulfites. We see now in the world of wine lots of white wine, red wine. Sweet is harder, but without any added sulfites all the way to bottling. Of course, there's a lot available in that range. There's wines that resist more than others. But champagne to me was not even a question. I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah.
And we're now in 2018, and that's in 2010. That if I didn't know it was without any sulfites or any additives whatsoever, I think it's a fabulous champagne, and certainly a champagne that, again, the less you add to a wine or a champagne, the more your body agrees with it. And I think this is certainly true. The way the wines really speaks to your soul more than your body is incredible.
And it's really rare. Champagne naturally made are really rare because it's the only region in France where we can't abandonner l'appellation.
You can't leave the appellation.
Yes, we can't leave the appellation champagne. Champagne, it can be agreed as a champagne, but if it's not agreed as a champagne, it's destroyed. We can't sell it as vin de pays or vin de table or vin de France or something else.
So how would you?
So, yeah,
If you don't get
it's lost.
if you don't pass
can't sell
the
it.
agreement,
Yeah,
All or nothing at all.
it's destroyed distillation.
You cannot sell it.
Wow.
So that's why the process are so industrial in champagne. Natural selected yeast, many additives during vinification, sulfate and so on, because the champagne must pass the exam of degustation, tasting and agreement.
So
Yeah.
people just see it as too big a risk to take.
Yeah.
Losing all, there's no second
It's like passing
There's no fallback position.
Yeah, passing an exam. If you pass it, you carry on living.
Yeah,
if you don't pass it,
fail.
you die. So you would pass exams very differently if it was the case.
So that's why there are so few, because you can see in other regions, in other countries, natural wines sometimes have defaults, deviations, something not easy to drink, and this wouldn't be accepted for the image of Champagne. So that's why we traveled so much. We had to understand life better, what is important to do in the wine. It's not only let things happen. It's really a knowledge we had to get to manage to do this. So the last champagne we tried today together is Vintage 5. It's a champagne, gastronomic champagne we want. It's called Quinte Essence in 2 words. Quinte really refers to the notes in the partition of music. It's about the composition, and essences is about the flavors nature offers us, about the wine. And the spirit of this cuvée is really to create a gastronomic cuvée showing the quintessence of the vintage. So in 2005 we decided to have 2/3 Pinot Meunier and 1/3 Chardonnay. It was vinificated in stainless steel, and it's the first year when we generalized natural yeast, malolactics spontaneously, with no thinning, no cold stabilization, no filtration. It's also a path we did because we tried natural vinification in 2001. 2001, I think, was the coldest year we had. I had in 25 years of wine grower. And it was really difficult to have good maturity, and we had really better balance in the wines vinificated with a natural yeast. It was the same in 2003. It was really hot year, and we had better balance with natural yeast compared to selected yeast. And so we increased slowly, and in 2005 we made 100%.
That's it, yeah. I think when you're coming from a place of it makes better wine, then you're on stronger footing than we're just going to use natural yeast and that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's logical in your situation. You're getting better wine.
Do you need to keep a very open mind, especially in, well, I think everywhere in the world, but especially in Champagne, where everything is so, it is quite technical. You know, you've got a second fermentation in the bottle, and they've made it very technical for commercial reasons, more often than not. So I think it's even harder to keep an open mind and to listen to your vineyards and listen to your wine in a region like Champagne, and the results are, I think, absolutely striking. In 2005, tasted a few 2005 recently. They're almost on their way down. This is still a wine that is growing. It's still a wine that has not finished. It's got the generosity and the evolution, but it's also got some useful energy. So it shows that nature, I'm convinced of it, and so are you, nature is far stronger than we are at doing what it does.
Our knowledge and technology is not as powerful as what nature can do. Well, life is really powerful. So we have to learn and build with nature instead of replacing all what nature can do with molecules, chemics, or so on. It's real knowledge, and it's a really good value for people, for our body, for our health. It's important. And today we end the tasting with a red Coteaux Champenois, because in Champagne there is wine with bubbles inside, but also wines without any bubble. It's called Coteaux Champenois. It exists in white, in red, and sometimes in rosé. And Confiance is a red today, made with Pinot Meunier on vintage 15. So when I tasted the grapes on vintage 15, some 2 plots were really had really all the sign on tasting the grape to create a red vinification. And we want this wine really sensual, something really pleasant, creating emotion too. So it's only distilled. There's no crushing of a cluster, and the fermentation begins inside the grape. It gives a freshness expression, and after it's only an infusion of grape. There's no extraction, no remontage, only pigeage at the top. That's all, and no additive to respect really the fermentation natural process.
No sulfur?
It was without any sulfur for 18 months during the élevage. 1 part in barrel, 1 part in stainless steel, and when we blend them, I put a few sulfite, and we let the wines from barrel and vat together for 6 months before bottling.
So 100% Pinot Meunier?
100% Pinot Meunier, yeah. 1 plot on Archalk planted in 58, and 1 over on Pierre Molière planted in 63.
And it's which vintage is 15? Is that the first? 15 was the first year you done that, or?
It's our third Coteaux Champenois. First time we vinificate.
2015 was the third time.
Yeah.
Okay.
First.
2010, 2014, and 2015.
There was 1 bottling in 10 with the wines from 2007, 2008.
Okay.
That's the one you tasted in New York.
First time.
And 1 from 14, you have them at Dynamic Vines, and 1 in 15. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I've never seen any bottles being presented to us. So
it's secret.
No question about would you like to buy some?
It's all already.
It's not like 14 was not for
You need
sale.
to ask.
Yeah, well, that's the hiding part of the cellar that we don't know.
So it's really a small production. It's 1,400 bottles for worldwide.
Delicious.
So I think I missed the part where you said, but it is a whole bunch.
Part of it.
Part, okay.
Ça veut dire quoi, bunch?
En trois parties.
Non. Non, c'est juste grappé, non foulé.
Okay. Yeah, it's such a grounded, for me almost like woody mouthfeel. Yeah, really.
It's pretty rare to find a Meunier 100% as a red wine. You can find, it's also extremely rare, but in Orléans, there's a producer that makes a pure Meunier.
That's right.
But in my life, in the world of wine, which is now probably about 25 years, this is only the 2 wines that I've tried in pure Meunier.
But the Coteaux Champenois they normally use Pinot Noir, no?
It's possible to use Pinot Noir, also Pinot Meunier. Yeah.
Okay.
Possible. Everything is possible.
That's the first time I've come across Coteaux Champenois made out of Pinot Meunier.
You can also have a white Pinot Meunier in Coteaux Champenois, pressing, fermenting in barrels, and vinificated as a white wine. Yeah.
The reason for that, like the scarcity of that as a red wine, as a 100%.
Well, I think Meunier, if you look at in Champagne, Meunier is always been thought as secondary to Pinot Noir. So when it came to in recent time, I guess, because that's the only thing we can talk about is recent time, because before that we don't have really recollection. When you wanted to do red wine, you would do it with the Pinot Noir because it's the Burgundy grape variety. It's the more noble grape variety of the two in people's mind. Now again, it depends what you do with it. And I think that also shows that Meunier or Pinot Noir has nothing on Pinot Meunier. Pinot Meunier can produce outstanding champagne as well as it can produce outstanding red wine, but it also very much depends on how you treat the vineyard and everything else around it. maybe Pinot Noir is supporting the recent treatment more than Pinot Meunier. It's maybe one explanation.
Yeah, lovely.
The texture is so silky.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you said at the start, but like the approximate age of the vineyard and of the vines.
The younger part of our vineyard is 20 years old, and the older is 55, planted in 55, so
60 years old.
60, yeah.
So, yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful wines as always.
Yeah.
Thank you, Franck.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you once again to Franck and to Frederic for making it possible. As I'm sure you can hear, everybody on the day was very impressed with the quality of the wines, and it was a real pleasure to go in depth and get the backstory behind them. This sort of episode is really one of the main reasons why I started the podcast, and I would dearly love to give a platform to other similar high quality tastings taking place in London. So I'm always open to hearing from you if you've got any interesting producers over. I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. Next time on this very special series of the Lost Episodes, in episode 278, we have the pleasure of a virtual tour around Slovakia with specialist importers of Slovakian and Czech wine into London, Pandemonium Wines. See you then.